The PlayStation 2 was a symbol of death to Sega. How could this happen? I mean, Sonic Adventure 2 was on the way. We already knew that was coming. We played the demo with Phantasy Star Online when that game launched. There was so much promise and so much hype for the Dreamcast. Phantasy Star Online, Sonic Adventure 2, Shenmue 2 was coming later that year. For all of that to come crumbling down, all of that hope and promise because of Sony and their PlayStation 2, I kind of took it personally. Like, I remember Dad and I both. We were both Sega fans. We were huge Sega fans. The PlayStation 2 had killed my beloved Sega Dreamcast. When the original PlayStation 1 first launched in 1995, my dad and I were amongst the first to ever play the console.
PlayStation?
We didn't even wait for the system to come out. We got our hands on the original Japanese unit by way of renting it from a local store here in the Houston area called Microplay. And that entire week that we had that PlayStation 1 was one of the most memorable weeks of my life as a kid. Guys, it was crazy to have this brand new video game technology in my house before anyone else even could conceive of the idea. Sony was the new kid on the block in 1995. All my life growing up until that point, it was Sega and Nintendo. That was pretty much it. Sony represented the future of gaming. I can remember feeling that tension. Sony with their PlayStation was out for blood. Really, guys, they wanted to knock out Sega. And while the PlayStation 1 never quite delivered that death blow, the PlayStation 2, now that's an entirely different story.
Welcome to the third place.
I remember my dad and I first started hearing about the PlayStation 2 sometime in probably 1999. The magazine started reporting it. We started hearing about it at, E3 and stuff like that. Word was leaking out that Sony's follow-up was on its way, and they were out to destroy the competition. Even as early as the launch of the Dreamcast, we knew that the PlayStation 2 was around the corner. Sony made sure to let the public know, let everybody know that, yeah, sure, this Dreamcast is coming out, and sure, it looks great. It's got a great launch lineup. Sega's back. Yeah, okay. Sony PlayStation was coming back as well. You just have to wait a little bit longer. And that was what they were telling their consumer base. For fans that had been burned by Sega in the past, many of them jumped ship to Sony in that really unfortunate era for Sega, where they just lost so much share of the market. Sony just knew how to hit Sega where it hurt. I mean, every time Sega gained ground, it seemed like Sony was one step ahead of them with some sort of announcement or some sort of promise to consumers that they were going to be the ones to wait on. And with the PlayStation 2, they knew they had to do something drastic. In order to put the final nail in the coffin, they announced that their PlayStation 2 would have a built-in DVD player. This officially made the PlayStation 2 the cheapest DVD player on the market. Of course, Sony, they were in part the inventor of DVDs. This was a brilliant move on Sony's part because DVD technology was the latest and greatest thing in home entertainment.
DVD. See how good a movie at home can be. With over 3,000 titles to choose from, make sure you see your next movie on DVD. Yeah.
We all wanted DVD. Of course, in my house, my dad was a videophile and he just owned every latest and greatest video technology thing that came out. including a DVD player. We were one of the first families to own DVD, like way back in 1997. I can remember one of the first DVDs we ever bought was Batman and Robin. Oh my gosh, that just says it all right there. But for Sony to include a DVD with the PlayStation 2, this was just a genius move, and it was the right move. We started to get really hyped for the PlayStation 2. I remember my dad and I actually took a trip all the way to Austin, Texas, about 3.5 hours from where we lived in Sugar Land, Texas. And we went to a game store called Game Fellas. We heard by calling them up or maybe seeing it online that they had a PlayStation 2 in stock as early as like March, like right when the unit launched in Japan, they had it. Sometime in March 2000 or April, my dad and I drove to Austin with a mission. We were going to play the PlayStation 2 for the first time. I can remember us going to the store and being so excited. But when we got to Game Fellas in Austin that year and we played PlayStation for the first time, the game that we played was Dead or Alive 2 Hardcore. We were so disappointed in what we saw. I don't know what it was, but the PlayStation 2 version of Dead or Alive 2, it looked worse than the Sega Dreamcast. I can remember Dad literally standing next to me as I played the PlayStation 2 for the first time at this kiosk set up in the store. I remember him just like blown away. He couldn't understand why it was worse than the Dreamcast. And I remember him like kind of making fun of it. Like, what is this? The visuals are not as vibrant. It's not as colorful. It's not as sharp looking. It looks more blurry. They've added these sort of like, textures and effects that actually made everything a little more muddy looking and blurrier than the Dreamcast version. Dead or Alive 2 was a showpiece on the Dreamcast. It looked brilliant.
すごいわね。ここまで来るなんて。あなたが。さーてね。お前がお母様。Get ready?
I remember back then thinking that there's nothing that can top these graphics. And with the PlayStation 2, they say first impressions are everything. And guys, this was not the right game to play first on the PlayStation 2 because it looked worse than the Dreamcast. Being Team Sega, I can remember my dad actually being excited, excited that it's going to flop maybe. It's not going to do that well. Dreamcast, Team Dreamcast, we're going to win. We're going to win the war. The PlayStation 2 doesn't look as good as the Dreamcast. I mean, I'm just going to tell you truthfully, my dad actually was not very excited about a PlayStation 2. I think the thing that excited him the most was it being a cheap DVD player and for us to be able to get a second DVD player for, $2.99.
$2.99.
That was a steal, and that's the way the public viewed it too. And so, yeah, that first impression weighed on Dad. I remember him always bringing it up at every chance he got that, are we really going to get the PlayStation 2? You really want it? Like, it doesn't look that great. The launch lineup had a bunch of games that, honestly, we weren't over the moon about. We weren't excited about games like Kessen. It just wasn't very exciting. My dad and I got every video game console typically like when it launched or even before it launched. We got the Japanese versions of so many game consoles. I mean, growing up, my dad just loved getting everything. And for once in his life, and mine too, we weren't excited about a launch lineup. It just wasn't doing it for us, guys. And really, when I think back to that first impression of Dead or Alive 2 Hardcore, when we played it in Austin and how it looked worse than the Dreamcast version, that set the stage for possibly skipping the PlayStation 2.
Good afternoon, I'm Donna Gregory.
And I'm Heidi Deja. There are waiting lists and tickets just to stand in line and get a chance to buy PlayStation 2. That is PlayStation 2, the hottest game to hit the market, and it arrives in the U.S. tomorrow. But some people are standing in line already trying to buy this toy.
When the PlayStation 2 finally launched on October 26th, 2000, we cautiously waited for one to become available.
These are gamers, computer lovers who normally spend their days inside braving the outdoors for one thing, PlayStation 2.
Is that the last one?
A shortage of consoles meant buying one became a lottery.
We didn't wait online for a midnight launch party, although those existed, and when the unit launched, there were people lined up around the block. I can remember seeing them. I remember driving by one of those stores like Best Buy or Target, and Dad pointing out, there they are, they're all waiting for the PlayStation 2. And I remember thinking, why aren't we there? Why can't we be a part of that? You know, I wanted to be there too, but I knew what my dad had said. My dad had said, we'll get it if we somehow find one. But I remember us going and checking different retailers, just thinking, okay, maybe one was left behind, or maybe they opened up a fresh new shipment. And I remember walking into Best Buy with Dad and him asking, do you have PlayStation 2s? No. I remember signs going up actually saying, we're sold out of PlayStation 2. That was the first time I ever saw that with a video game console, where retailers had to put out signs that said, we don't have PlayStation 2. And we checked many different stores, couldn't find it. And again, Dad would just tell me, it's okay, we'll just wait on it. If we find it, we'll get it. And of course, the hope was to get one before Christmas. Dad went to Best Buy and Target and other retailers for several weeks, if not months, looking for a PlayStation 2. And all the way up until Christmas, guys, he never found one in stock. Thus, Christmas of 2000 was all about the Sega Dreamcast. And really, I'm kind of glad that it happened that way, because the Sega Dreamcast, with how much we loved that console, that was the last hurrah for the Dreamcast. That Christmas of 2000, I got games like Jet Grind Radio.
Cheap Tricky.
Jet Grind Radio! Shenmue!
Games that became my favorite games on the Dreamcast. And so many incredible memories were made that Christmas with my Sega Dreamcast. Even my cousins called up on Christmas and told us that they got a Dreamcast. There was still some life in the good old Sega Dreamcast that we loved so much. Dreamcast, in reality, was hanging on by a thread. The Sony PlayStation 2, with its launch and with the demand, had basically been the nail in the console coffin for not just the Sega Dreamcast console itself, but Sega altogether as a console manufacturer. In January of 2001, I received the biggest gut punch of my life as a gamer and a fan of Sega when they announced that they were not only discontinuing the Dreamcast, but they were exiting the console market altogether and just becoming a software developer for the competition.
Sega have recently announced that they're ending production of their most successful console to date. Yes, it's checkout time for the Dreamcast.
PlayStation had won. The PlayStation 2 had killed my beloved Sega Dreamcast. And I tell you what, guys, this was like a sticking point. Like, even though we wanted a PlayStation 2 and, you know, we're very interested in getting, you know, brand new video game hardware, I kind of took it personally. Like, I remember Dad and I both, we were both Sega fans. We were huge Sega fans.
You love it?
Love it.
Extra special birthday surprise, huh?
Yeah.
Along with this.
Yep.
It lights up.
And knowing that Sony, with their PlayStation 2, had killed Sega, as we knew them, it was hard to swallow. It was, it's silly in hindsight when you think about it because it's very, first world problems, right? But man, we were emotionally attached to this console manufacturer, to this game developer that had made up so many of the memories that we had shared together over the years. My entire childhood, some of my greatest memories were with Sega and my dad. Obviously, I know that Sony wasn't the only reason that Sega called it quits. I mean, Sega did so much damage to themselves that really it was self-inflicted wounds that ultimately killed Sega as a console manufacturer. But Sony definitely did. They finally delivered that death blow that they had been trying to deliver since the PlayStation 1. I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder when it came to the PlayStation 2, and so did my dad. It wasn't something we were super excited about because, honestly, guys, Sony had sort of offended us with the PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2 was a symbol of death to Sega. How could this happen? I mean, Sonic Adventure 2 was on the way. We already knew that was coming. We played the demo with Phantasy Star Online when that game launched. There was so much promise and so much hype for the Dreamcast. Phantasy Star Online, Sonic Adventure 2, Shenmue 2 was coming later that year. I mean, for all of that to come crumbling down, all of that hope and promise because of Sony and their PlayStation 2, that smug, giant corporation with all their money, all that money they could just burn with the DVD players. Just, here, you have a DVD player. Here's a DVD player for you. We're going to just bundle it into our console and make everybody want to buy a PlayStation 2. Kill the competition. They can't compete with us and our money and our Benjamins. Man, I always rooted for the underdog, and Sega was always the underdog for me. As 2001 rolled along, there did come a day where suddenly a window of opportunity opened for Dad to buy a PlayStation 2. He got a call from his colleague, a coworker friend of his named Carrie. And Carrie told Dad on the phone, "Mark, I'm here at Best Buy, and haven't you been looking for one of those PlayStation 2s? Dad said, yeah. Now, of course, I remember Dad telling me the conversation that he and Carrie had. He said, "Mark, they've got one of these PlayStation 2s here. They got a couple. I'm going to pick one up. Do you want one?" This was in February or March of 2001. And suddenly, Dad had to make a decision. Is it time? Is it time to buy a PlayStation 2 and move on? And, lo and behold, my birthday was around the corner in April. So Dad tells Carrie on the phone, he says, "Absolutely. Pick one up for me. I will pay you back." And so Dad, with the help of his friend Carrie, got a PlayStation 2. They were able to finally secure one. Honestly, it was so hard, even in February and March, to find a PlayStation 2. This was a lot of luck. The fact that his friend Carrie was in the right place at the right time and remembered that my dad was looking for one, that's the only reason my dad was able to snag one. I remember coming home from school one day, and there it was. Already hooked up. My dad had already hooked up the console. He was playing SSX.
Sonic videos provided by the sounds of Ron Sound. Strap on your ball for slow drilling.
I think you said something along the lines of, "What's that on the TV?" And I was like, just trying to digest what I was looking at. Wait. And I saw the unit. PlayStation 2. Oh my gosh, PlayStation 2. but I don't have this moment on videotape. When I was compiling all the videos that Dad took and creating this series, My Retro Life, and doing this channel, I really thought that I had this footage. I remembered the occasion, and I remember Dad bought SSX, Dynasty Warriors 2, and Tekken Tag Tournament. Those were the 3 games that we got with the console at launch. Dad had them all there, all set up, but he didn't record it. I don't know why he didn't record it. Pretty soon we got some other games like Street Fighter EX3, and I can remember playing that game with my buddies on my birthday that year.
62 of us tonight, Brian now.
You know, my dad recorded us playing the PlayStation 2 because that was the hot new console there in our house at the time. And it was brand new for us, and we were experiencing it. We had gotten Zone of the Enders, and I remember showing off the demo of Metal Gear Solid 2 that day. That was my birthday when Dad recorded this footage. When I look at this footage, when I see us playing the PlayStation 2, I just remember at that point, we had kind of moved on. We had kind of accepted the fact that Sony had won, that the PlayStation 2 was here to stay. It was the future, and the Dreamcast was a thing of the past. The Dreamcast would go on to have a few more games that we would pick up that year in 2001. And one of them was one of the killer apps of the console, Sonic Adventure 2.
Anamorphic, baby.
I remember playing Sonic Adventure 2, getting all the way to the end of the game, like I did with Shenmue and so many others. And Dad recorded some footage here of the end of Sonic Adventure 2. Here we were, the summer of 2001, playing the Dreamcast still and loving it, even though Sony and the PlayStation 2 had already killed it. I still, when I think back to those days, I still harbor a little bit of resentment of what could have been. You know, I ended up loving the PlayStation 2, and there were so many great games I remember getting for that console, and really, it was fantastic. It's one of the best ever that's ever come out. But guys, I can't help but remember when I think back to 25 years ago, when the PlayStation 2 first launched in October of 2000, I remember all the hype. I remember all the excitement, but I also remember all of the heartache that it caused me and my dad when it killed our beloved Dreamcast. Well, guys, that's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this look back at the launch of the PlayStation 2, and specifically why my dad hesitated and did not buy the console right at launch. You know what they say, it's in the past. I forgive you, Sony, and so do a lot of other Sega fans, I'm sure, at this point. But let me know in the comments below if you are still a little salty about what Sony did to Sega way back when the PlayStation 2 launched. And if this is your first time to the channel, do consider subscribing. I love talking about my game-crazy family and all of the amazing adventures we had with video games, so many of which were caught on tape by my dad. And a big shout out to my patrons over on Patreon and YouTube memberships. Seriously, thank you so much for your support. It means the world. And if you want to become a patron, definitely head on over to patreon.com/myretrolife or click the join button right here on YouTube.